Mr. Montplaisir? Mr. Peterson?
I'm here.
Mr. Costin?
Here.
Ms. Johnson?
Here.
Ms. McCall?
Here.
Mr. Jacobson? Mr. Hendrickson?
Here.
Mr. Steen?
Here.
Mr. Gehrig? Mr. Redlinger?
Here.
Dr. Mahoney?
All right, and it looks like Mr. Montplaisir got him right after you called his name, I think, too, Don.
Mr. Montplaisir?
I am here.
All right. I'm assuming we have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
Okay, with that, looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
Peterson, so moved.
Redlinger seconds.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Is there a motion?
Move to approve, Costin.
Is there a second?
Second, Montplaisir.
All those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. None. Approval of the bills. Kent.
Yeah, on your list, you have approximately $3 million worth of bills, of which 2.4 is for the Cass Joint Water Resource District. On the list that's attached, there's 5 land transactions, so that's why that continues to be a large amount. And the rest are legal bills related to our activities. So other than that, I didn't have any comments unless there was potential questions.
Any questions for Kent? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Redlinger moves to approve.
And a second?
Montplaisir, second.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Montplaisir?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Costin?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson?
Yes.
Mr. Steen?
Yes?
Mr. Redlinger?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Number 4 on the agenda, financial report. Kent?
Okay, on the fiscal accountability report for the year 2020, we've expended $21,516,286, of which most of that is land transactions in North Dakota. And then the cumulative project to date total of $556,193,806. And if you're going to go to the statement of net position on the following page, we have $86,470,605 in the assets available for the project. And just to let you know, the bankers are watching. I got a call today from Wells Fargo, wanted to know if we had any cash left. And so they're watching their loans carefully. If you move on to the summary budget report, Member Steen asked for that budget number to be approved in the column that for the revenues. That has been updated, and so those numbers are reflective of what was anticipated. And so that's a change for this month. There wasn't any budget figure shown until this month on that. But other than that, the budget is at about 22% of total. And all the other accompanying reports are included. So that would be the end of my report.
Any questions for Kent on? Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did have one other thing I wanted to bring up. The audit that we talked about, needing the 3-year audit, has been completed. It's through its final review of Eide Bailey today, and I just received sign-off today that it is done. So I would imagine we should present that to the Finance Committee and ultimately to the board next month.
That would be outstanding. Any questions for Kent on his report or any of the attached information? Can I have a motion to receive and file?
On pleasure, so moved.
Is there a second?
McCall, second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Joel, Executive Director's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I get into the budget analysis, I just want to publicly thank Chairman Grimberg for his service on the Finance Committee and, of course, the Board of Authority. Mr. Grimberg will no longer be attending meetings, so we do have a space open on the Finance Committee for a DA appointment, and that is on the diversion agenda for tomorrow. And then I would anticipate at the July meeting, the Finance Committee on the agenda would be a vote to appoint a new chair. So obviously for this meeting, Vice Chair Steen is administrating, but I just wanted to make the committee aware of some of those changes. So,
Thanks, Joel.
yep. With that, I'll move into the report. You know, the intent of this report is to give some background and analysis on a month-by-month basis on how we're doing budget-wise in the specific scope areas of the project. So as you can see here, as mentioned prior, we've expended $30 million of our $138 million budget for forecast year 2020. You know, obviously we're almost 6 months through the program this year. And so as Mr. Montplaisir had mentioned, we're currently at 22% of the forecast year budget. That's not concerning from my perspective. As the budget was prepared for this year, it was anticipated that a majority of the cost expenditures were going to happen in the last half of the year. And a majority of those are related to lands acquisition as that moves forward. So it's taken us a while to kind of ramp up, but the next few months we'll see quite a bit of activity related to the lands program and budget expenditure for forecast year 2020. Paul, if you can move to level 2, thank you. So here's just an analysis cost to date for management, legal, financial, and P3 procurement. We're about halfway through the year and we're about halfway through the budget. That's tracking as expected. A few of the construction projects that are being designed right now are indicated here. The I-29 grade raise project, which is intended to bid out this fall. That is a core project. And we are about halfway through the design budget for that, and that is tracking as expected as well. Next page, Paul. Other mitigation projects, as you can see, we're still expending some money in the Oxbow-Hickson-Baki. That's another project bid and is just starting construction for stormwater outlet for the OHB project. So that'll continue through the summer. We have a number of in-town levy projects that the city of Fargo is doing at the moment. And those are reimbursed by the Diversion Authority. And as you can see, the land acquisition and mitigation, a lot of activity so far this year, but we have a long ways to go. And you can see we've kind of split out the cost expenditures to date for the different elements associated with the project. Next page. Engineering and design is moving forward as anticipated. We're slightly under budget. We're we're tracking slightly under budget for where we're expected to be at this point this year. Some of that's in regards to the MSA changes that were done the last couple months in an intent to save on costs. The program support services, that B. Jacobs as the program manager, is tracking as expected. And so overall, I don't see any budget concerns at the moment, and I'll open it up for any questions. Mr. Chair, should we move into Executive Director?
Yes, we should. I just had my mic off and I was yapping away. But anyway, thank you. What I propose is that, Joel, you cover all three task orders and give an opportunity for questions after each one. And then we will take a roll call vote on all three unless somebody would like to pull one out. Okay.
All right. That's a wise recommendation, Mr. Chair. And so I'll move into the three recommended contracting actions for the Finance Committee. The first one is Task Order 1, Amendment 16. That's for HMG. That is a task order amendment to pay the insurance premium for HMG. This was one item that was negotiated through the MSA process. Prior to this proposed amendment, the insurance premium had been buried in the overhead costs per hour for HMG in the last MSA. Much cleaner and more cost efficient to move that out and pay that directly. So that is a recommended action. The second one is Task Order 16, Amendment 13. This is in relation to the LOMAR for the 2nd Street in-town project for HMG, as well as additional CLOMAR support for responding to FEMA for the overall CLOMAR for the project. And then there's some additional permit preparation costs for the 401 permit for the core and some additional permitting that we need to do in the next few months. The third one is Task Order 20, Amendment 5, and that is for design services for HMG related to the County Road 1617 transportation improvements. And so that's improvements adjacent to the inlet structure and the phase construction of how the P3 diversion channel will tie into the inlet structure and how we keep transportation access through that area. And ultimately the final incorporation of County Road 1617 adjacent to the inlet structure. So with that, I do recommend approval of these three task orders. They're all contained within the program budget.
Any questions for Joel on any of the task orders referred to above? Any questions for Joel or a motion? Is there a motion to approve task orders 1, 16, and 20?
Move to
Peterson,
approve
so
Costin.
Is there a second?
Second, Montplaisir.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Montplaisir,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Costin,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
yes,
Ms. McCall,
yes,
Mr. Hendrickson,
Yes.
And Mr. Steen?
Mr. Steen,
Yes.
Mr. Redlinger.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. The next three items are information only, so Joel, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll quickly go through these, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to clarify. The first one here was an advanced work directive issued to HMG for task order 26. That was related to the Cheyenne diversion, FM diversion mitigation, and that was in relation to the potential for enhanced flows due to the incorporation of the Cheyenne diversion into the FM diversion. And so we needed to do some modeling to verify and kind of settle on some flows. I am happy to report that modeling was done successfully in conjunction with the Corps, and we were able to hold the flows at what was basically anticipated, and we were not anticipating any cost increase on the channel portion of the project due to that incorporation. The next one there, it was another advanced work directive, and that was in an attempt to meet the core schedule for the County Road 1617 project, and you saw the task order just previously. So this was some initial work to get HMG started on that in anticipation of approval of the task order. The third one here is just a water line relocation for Cass Rural Water. That is a construction advanced work directive. The fourth one is an archaeological investigation that was just anticipated in the budget, something we need to continue to move forward with to clear all the locations for archaeological purposes. The fifth one is the 2nd Street Pump Station. It's just a construction change order that was reviewed by the program managers and myself and approved. And then the Terracon was just a contract term update. And the last one indicated on here was the project closeout for work package 43CD with a project savings of $52,000. Cass joint approved contracting actions. So these do go in front of the executive director and were recommended for approval. A number of these have been addressed with the finance committee previously. So the HDR and the SRF and the HMG were all related to the MSA negotiations and the MSAs with the new MSAs between the land agents and the Cass County Joint Board to direct contract that work out. And the HDR task order along with the ALTEG task order were both for amendments to the land agents work necessary to acquire parcels, and were all contained within the budget as well and anticipated. So. The third one here is the MCCJPA, and again, these were the MSA changes where we direct consulted the land firms with the MCCJPA. No budget increase at this time as we work through those initial task orders with SRF and HDR.
Thanks, Joel. Any questions for Joel on these last three items? All right. Hearing none, on to other business. Joel.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was a great discussion last month at Finance about investigating potential cost savings ideas. That is ongoing. I don't have anything to report other than we are working through TAG and looking at a number of different potential ideas. I would also like to report out, we've been receiving some great feedback from the P3 developers as far as innovative ideas that they're looking for approval. And so we continue to work through those. A lot of great ideas coming forward that have potential to impact the project in a positive way as far as cost savings are concerned. So I would like to leave this item on the finance agenda and report out maybe some more substantive savings at the next meeting, but we continue to work through that. The second item I had for other business is a WIFIA update, and I think John Shockley is on the line, and I guess I'd turn it over to him to give a schedule update on WIFIA.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to provide the board an update. We have completed our WIFIA application materials and fully submitted the WIFIA credit application. The only remaining item now is to submit the audit, which should be finished later this week. We had a long conversation with the Undersecretary, Deputy Director of the EPA regarding the closing of the WIFIA loan, and we have had our WIFIA closing date moved up. We are now going to be closing in late September or mid-October. So that's very positive news. We'll be able to lock in an interest rate, a very low interest rate. We're expecting the interest rate in the third and fourth quarter of this year to be low. Recall that interest rate is locked in even though we won't be making draws on the WIFIA loan until construction actually starts. I guess the downside is more of a, just personally, it requires me to put in a lot of hours that I intended to spread over our original schedule. So I just wanted to flag up that we will be very busy on the WIFIA loan, completing the master indenture of trust, which I've been circulating with different parties. As part of that WIFIA loan closing, we are also going to be paying off the Wells Fargo loans that are currently in the name of the city of Fargo and Cass County with Cass County Joint Temporary Funding Improvement Bonds. And so there are a lot of financial activities relating to the finance that are going to be coming before this board in the next 3 months. So it's an exciting time period for the project from a financing standpoint, but also very busy. I would note this is the second largest WIFIA loan in the nation. So there's a lot of attention that's paid to our project from US EPA. And so I can certainly answer any questions, but very positive news that we'll be closing earlier on the WIFIA loan than expected.
Questions for John?
Yes, this is Carla McCall. John, do you need that an audit to be approved by a board somewhere before you can submit it with the application, or is it just the fact that the audit is done?
I think eventually we'll want, pursuant to the auditor's requirement, there'll need to be some type of board approval. But for the WIFIA purposes, once it's complete, we'll go ahead and submit it. They understood that we were in the process of getting the audit, and they just wanted to make sure we had it completed as part of our application. As steps and future audits are completed, we have to continually update that as with any federal program. So in the short term, no, that won't prohibit us from continuing forward with the closing on the WIFIA loan.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for John on the WIFIA loan? John, I know you guys have put in a ton of time to get that done, and we have little side conversations once in a while, and so I, for one, can appreciate all the time that you've put into it and your team has put into it, and I know you guys have done an outstanding job for the Diversion Authority, and I can appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me work on it. This is it's not often that you can say that you've helped save a project, $500-600 million in interest. I mean, it feels pretty good to be able to say that. So
that'll look pretty good on the resume, I think, John, if you ever need it. So, anything else for John? And Joel, before we leave other business, just you have a bit of a news on your staffing update.
Yes, that's right. We'll have our engineering director starting July 1st, so next week. Already getting him up to speed. His name is Chris Bockyguard. Chris has spent his entire career working in the Fargo market and in North Dakota, in Minnesota. very familiar with the area, brings a lot of relationship value, a lot of engineering knowledge, and he has also been involved in this project. Parts of flood control projects in Fargo-Moorhead dating back to the Southside Flood Control Project. So an immense amount of knowledge and resources that he's going to be bringing to the table. So we're very happy to be bringing him on board. And so, yeah, just some great news. Our first big director hire for the Diversion Authority, and we're very happy to bring him on board on July 1st.
Okay, thank you. Just one thing, this meeting probably felt like it went along pretty quickly. We do have a couple of people trying to make a meeting by 5 o'clock, and so that was the reason for the expediting the process here. The next meeting is July 22nd, 2020, and I believe we're going to have that in person, if everything stays the same.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. That's the intent as of right now. And so that obviously subject to change if need be, but we are going to try to coordinate that as our first in-person meeting after the COVID-19 response here. So,
okay. Any other business? If not, looking for a motion to adjourn.
Peterson, so moved.
Is there a second? We're adjourned. Thank you. Have a good week.
thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.